All right, let's talk USC Trojans heading into a big time year for Lincoln Riley in this USC program. Disappointing year in the Big Ten last year for the Trojans, but they made a lot of momentum this offseason. Now's the time for it to carry over with their new additions as they get ready for fall. And there's one surprising name jumping out in fall practice, poised to be a massive playmaker for the Trojans this season. We'll get to all that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, that is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the USC Trojans, particularly on defense over the past couple of years and really this past offseason, have dedicated a full-blown attack in the recruiting game to up the talent baseline, up the quality of players and the breadth and depth of that side of the football. We've covered it the entire offseason. They've done a phenomenal job, but it's one thing to make the moves and add the players, the guys that have the good rankings in 24 Sports or Rivals or On3 or whatever it is. But it's one thing to have these guys show up and start executing and impressing. And there's one guy in particular where literally everyone is impressed with him as a freshman. We got a bunch of reports here to break down, so we'll get into them right now. Let's pull up the first one. This is a tweet or post on X, whatever you want to call it. This is courtesy of Ryan Cartier. This was earlier in fall practice. One of the young USC players who keeps getting mentioned during camp, freshman defensive tackle Floyd Boucard. He just does some things you can't coach. USC defensive coordinator Danton Lynn said. High praise from defensive coordinator Lynn. Obviously, we're looking at a guy like Boucard. That's good. That's a good start. That would be enough right there, but there's a lot more where that came from. Let's go into our next article, courtesy of 24/7 Sports. Floyd Boucard is a freshman with a huge upside. USC defensive ends coach Sean Newell said ahead of fall camp. He's so athletic. He has good feet. Obviously, we have our big guys in Keyshawn Silver and Josh Jarrett, but we have guys, if those two are out of breath, there are guys that are strong enough and good enough to fill in. Floyd is versatile. He's in that mix. So this is ahead of camp. They're saying, hey, listen, here's a freshman, role player, situational player. He's good enough to get in that mix. So that's ahead of camp. Obviously, he's improved and done some good things during camp. Older players like junior defensive lineman Devin Tompkins are also noting Boucard's ability. Floyd has a great skill set, Tompkins said. His footwork is unbelievable. He has that natural knack for the game. He hasn't missed a beat. And just another coach to throw in the mix here. Floyd, he's physical and he's heavy-handed. USC defensive line coach Eric Henderson said after spring camp. So we're going all the way back to spring camp now. He's got some of the best feet that you've ever seen. I think he has elite footwork. He's a guy that's still growing mentally, the football IQ part. He's working to understand the game better, coming from high school to an NFL style of defense and coaching. When he improves in that area, he'll get better and play faster. He'll be a phenomenal player. I'm very excited about him. Again, we're seeing all this evidence here where everyone's like, this kid is a phenom. He's a crazy talent. And we're not done there. We've had a reporter. We've had two coaches, actually three coaches. We've had defensive ends coach, defensive line coach, defensive coordinator, and a veteran defensive lineman. How we throw one more teammate in the mix? Let's go to our final report here, courtesy of Athlon Sports. Redshirt sophomore Cameron Fountain admitted to Morissette that he's taken some tips from Boucard. Floyd came in and surprisingly for a young guy, he showed me some things from a different position, Fountain said. That came from being in the film room with him and just watching him play. There's stuff that I take from his game and I put it into mine. He's a great freshman to have around. So this is absolutely bonkers stuff, right? We talk about corroborating evidence on this channel all of the time, right? We look for media reports saying a freshman's doing well. We look for a coach saying a freshman's doing well, right? We want to find some evidence. It's very rare where you have media reports. It's very rare where you have the defensive coordinator, multiple position coaches, and multiple players all saying the same thing, all training in one direction. That's usually what we call a leading indicator that a player is going to be quite good. When you have media, every coach, and a bunch of players saying, this guy's good. That's a great sign for Floyd Boucard and a great sign for this USC Trojans defense, because if we're being totally honest, and I think all USC fans understand it, they need to get better defensively specifically, and I think at run defense is one of their bigger flaws. Let's pull up this graphic here. This is courtesy of PFF. So this is the Big Ten rankings last year with the focus on run defense. You can see that column highlighted kind of in the middle of the screen there, that R defense right there, just the right of defense. And you can see the top programs in the conference right there, going top to bottom. You can see Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, Minnesota, Penn State, Michigan State, Oregon, Iowa, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Rutgers, Washington, and there's USC at 14th in stopping the run. That ain't going to get it done. If you look at where USC is situated in that graph, right, a lot of 6-6, a lot of 5-7, a little 7-5 there. That's not what Lincoln Riley wants. That's not what you want as USC fans, right? You want to be up there near the top with the 11 wins, the 12 wins, right? There's some aberrations. If you play run defense, there's no guarantee to success. Michigan State, proof of that. But if you look at the vast majority of teams that play good run defense, They win a lot of games. Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State, Oregon. We're talking about playoff teams. Even Iowa just missed out on the postseason. And even if you look at a Michigan team last year, they were so god awful at the quarterback, where their defense was basically championship caliber still, and they could run the football. If they had been just average at quarterback, they would have won 10, 11 games. USC, I think, is going to be significantly better at quarterback than they were last year, and significantly better than Michigan was at quarterback last year. So I think they're not going to have any sort of the same kind of problems. So if USC's run defense can just get up there closer to the top, it doesn't have to leap all the way up to what, 94-7 to be number one. We're not asking for that. That would be a little unreasonable. But it has to go from what, 72-8 on this chart here. Let's split the difference. Let's get up to the 80s. Let's get to Oregon at 87. Let's get to Iowa at 84. And then we're going to see a 10-11 win USC Trojans team if they can be healthier at other areas, and if quarterback play can get up to our expectations, which I think it will. The reality is USC has the pieces in place, and I trust Lincoln Riley's offensive acumen and how he develops and uses X's and O's there. Love the coaching staff on the defensive side. We got some young guys into the fold here. If a guy like Floyd Buchard, again, I think early on he's a situational guy, but even if he comes in just 20 snaps a game to get a good stuff on the run, get you to 2nd and 8, some of those key downs mid part of the game when you got your second and third rotation in, sometimes that's all it takes. One of the things that can happen defensively that's so strange is that one additional stop can suddenly catapult you from a bad defense to a great defense. Here's what I mean by this. Let's say it's the middle of the second quarter and you've got your second group defense in because you're giving your starters a breather. Some teams like USC last year, for example, would have gotten ran on right down the field and would have given up a touchdown. So you just lost a drive. You have to put your starters in early. They're now tired early. They wear out the end of the game, right? Happens all the time. But let's say you throw in your second unit, Buchard's in there, and he gets his stuff, and a team gets a 2nd and 10, long yardage situation. You get after the passer, incomplete pass, 3rd and 10, and that's how your defensive back makes a play. Punt, right? There you go. You got to stop. Now your defense, you throw your second unit out there again, right? And now your starting defense gets more rest. They're ready at the end of the game. So you just prevented a touchdown from happening with one stuff, and you gave your starting defense more rest, which means at the end of the game, they're ready to get more stops. It can happen that quick. One or two plays on defense can be the difference between great and bad. It is so the gap is so thin, especially in higher level college football, like the Big Ten obviously is. I think guys like Floyd Buchard, again, in situational roles early, maybe he becomes even more earlier in his career. I think he'll become a stud much later. But even if early in his career, all he is a second string rotational guy coming in, making some big plays, getting that one extra stop, that one extra possession where they don't give up points, giving their starters one more set of rest, that could be critical. That could be all USC needs to go from 14th in run defense all the way up to the top 8. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Trojan fans, in the comment section below, we're talking defensive tackles, talking defensive linemen here. Let me ask you guys this. Who is the greatest defensive tackle in USC Trojans history? This is a very interesting question, right? You can go a lot of different directions with this. I mean, you really go old school, new school, and obviously the Pete Carroll era had a few guys, but, throw a surprising name out there. Throw a good one out there. Give us your opinion, the greatest defensive tackle in USC Trojans history. Put them in the comment section below. But, Miles, over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest news out of USC?
Yeah, Nick, this guy is very intriguing to me when we're talking about Buchard. I love what you're hearing about him. Like you said, there's a picture. If you only have a few strokes of the brush, it's not very clear. But when you start to hear from everybody, everyone's helping paint the picture, you really get the feel for this guy. There's a little something special about this
Yeah.
guy. And you got 4 or 5 different people when we're talking about coaches, we're talking about players, we're talking about everybody involved, talking about this guy and how special he is. He's probably pretty special. This is a guy that can do some good stuff. And so I love to hear that. I love to see what is going on because this is a Trojan team that is on the uptrend. We've done a bunch of videos. Go check them out. Talking about we have the graphs and the trends of where this defense is going, the kind of players they've been picking up. So this is like the next set of data in that line. We talked about, okay, they've been getting more defensive players, more defensive drafts, is better winning percentage. We see all of the stuff that's going on there. So now you see all of these good amount of players come. You want to make sure they're actually good players as well. So we're starting to hear about guys like Buchard here who actually fit the bill. You love it when, all right, we got 15 defensive players in this year's recruiting class. It's going to be really good. We're going to have a great class. Well, they've actually got to put the play on the field. Buchard is the first in that set of guys to really start impressing. So I love that. A second thing about Buchard that I think is really intriguing here is something that I like about all guys. He came from Canada. This guy started out playing hockey. He wasn't really a big football guy. And he's already, growing after 2 years in high school playing football. He's growing, he's developing, he's becoming a good player. There's still so much for him to learn, so much room for him to grow, and he's already showing that he's a very special player. So I love that. I love players that really are in the infancy of their football career. They start to play at a high level because there's so much more they can be. I think he has a much more likelihood to be a big time star because of how early on, how unpolished his football career is. And then finally, the last thing I really like about Bucard when you're looking at him is this guy, and I brought it up briefly here, he's just an athlete. He played so many different sports. He played hockey. He's nimble on his feet. You got to be able to skate like that. But then at the second thing here is on his first team over at Mobile Christian. This is a guy that played snaps at tight end. This is a guy that played snaps at running back. This isn't just your big old hunking defensive tackle who really can't move around too much. He's 6'3", 305 pounds. This is a big dude, but he's quick. He's nimble. He could play tight end. He could play running back. He could skate with the best of them in Canada at playing hockey. This guy is very impressive athletically. I think he is going to be a phenom here. Keep your eyes on Bucard because everything he's bringing to the table here for this Trojans teams are things that we like here, things that I like. Infancy of his career, very athletic. We're already hearing so much corroborating evidence from not only coaches, but also players. This guy seems pretty special to me, so I keep your eye on Floyd Bucard. Like you said, if he's only rotational early on in his career here at USC, he's just learning, he is growing, but expect this guy to blow up either late this season, going into the following season. We're going to see Floyd Bucard on the field more and more as his time at USC progresses.
And one final point to end on, and this is sort of a new era of USC. You bring in Bowden, of course, from Notre Dame. Boucard was not like a five-star recruit, right? He wasn't like a guy that made all the headlines. I think he was a three-star guy, courtesy of 24/7 Sports. Not a huge name by any stretch of the imagination. But what good programs do is they take three-star guys on paper and turn them into 4 or 5-star players, or they find those steals, the guys that everyone thinks a three-star, but they're really a 4 or 5-star. Now, it's early. I'm not going to call Boucard a steal yet. I'm not going to say he's a 4 or 5-star player yet in terms of what he's doing, but the trend is definitely there. And if USC can do this with Floyd Bucard and do this with a lot of other players, we'll see a really good recruiting class on paper, to your point, look even better now that they're on the field executing above and beyond what people projected them to be. And programs that are able to do that, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, again, Bowden comes from Notre Dame, were one of the preeminent examples of that. They would recruit a 3-star guy and he'd play like a 4 or 5-star guy. They recruit a 4-star guy and he'd play like a 5-star guy. USC, I think, has a chance to follow that same model here with guys like Floyd Bucard. And if they can do that, and especially on defense where they really need it, watch out. In no short order, this USC Trojans team could return to the top of the college football world.